Welcome to the AI Shortcut.
All right, welcome to the AI Shortcut. My name is Josh Dillard, and today we're starting a new segment called Ideation and Future Predictions. So, one of the things I wanted to do with this channel is to make bold predictions, to think about what the future holds for people in AI and what the world's going to look like in the future. And one of the things and one of the ways that I started to predict the future was to just talk to ChatGPT and ask it some ideas and just play out kind of the narratives and where all this is taking us, because I don't know about you, but it gets scary, especially when you start to see everything firsthand, new apps popping up, Google dropping a bunch of new tools and really kind of taking the game by storm right now. And that's just not the end of it. We're still at the beginning. So one of the ideas that I had for this session is to write a basic script outlining a concept that might happen with AI. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to like and subscribe. I have to say that just to get this thing going. And also, if you have ideas or topics that you want to talk about or have problems and in your business, in automation, in AI creation, let me know and send a message or put it in the comments and we can do an episode about it. I'm just a guy in a room talking about AI. I've done a bunch of video production work, 14 years. I'm an Emmy winner, a Telly Award winner, and I've worked for some pretty big brands and own a production company as well. So I'm making a huge change over to AI, and anyone who is bold enough to do the same, whether it's being forced by hand by all the innovation or just out of curiosity, just join with me. I'm going to be pumping out some new tools that I think are really going to be helpful. And the goal is to make as many of the things free for everybody to participate. There might be a few things that I have to charge for, but I just want to create and I want people to be able to use these tools and leverage them themselves. So with that being said, here are some ideas that AI could be directing us and taking us to, which is pretty terrifying. So I had this idea about the future being something looking like what kind of Joe Rogan describes as his philosophy is thinking that the future will be able to communicate with each other, telepathy. He believes that AI will get us to a spot that we will be able to communicate without speaking. And when I first heard that, he's had that opinion for probably at least half a decade. And when I first heard him speaking, I didn't think that was possible. But now with the innovation of AI and it moving so rapidly and the continuation of it learning the human and taking everything that we feed it and then also the behaviors that we're giving it, there's going to be a new language that's going to start developing. And this language is, we are consumers of like the LLMs right now because it's feeding us what we've known as civilization. But when you have the collective of human intelligence put in to a central location and then the behaviors of that human are all put into that central location and everything that we want, I'm sure a ton of people are asking for the same things for AI tools for their marketing or for image creation or even treating ChatGPT as a therapist. And if we're all doing that, then the behaviors that we implement are going to be a lot of the same things. And so the lack of what humans have is what ChatGPT and AI is implementing and giving us. And so lack is going to be filled. And that filling is going to continue to spill over. And with AI being able to understand itself and then start thinking even more for itself and then learning from itself rather than from human input, it's going to start seeing the inputs, what we're consuming even more, and then it's going to start dialing that in to where it feeds us more information than I think we're able to even handle. And so if you're receiving more information than you're able to handle, there has to be some sort of capacitor. And this capacitor will be in the form of hieroglyphics. We already have it now. Emojis speak. In the modern day, an emoji is a hieroglyphic of the 21st century. And as silly and stupid as that sounds, a winky face, smiley face at 2 a.m. means let's get it on, right? Or, snowflake means let's go snort some questionable substance. Not that I would know this, but, poop emoji, you got to go take a crap. you could string together a list of different emojis and they would mean something, much like hieroglyphics of Egyptian times and even before then, which is fascinating because if you think about the history that we think that we know, hieroglyphics were language that had a representation of human behavior and human communication and history sketched on walls and rock, and was very primitive. And then we developed a language where we're able to communicate very deep intellectual thoughts. We're able to write novels, encyclopedias. You have Shakespeare, you have Dante, you have Chauvinisky, you have, during the Industrial Revolution, an influx of authors in the 20th century that started to develop psychology and started to develop modern day thought in medicine and in economics, right? And these ideas are kind of ancient if you think about it from the perspective of where we've been the last 3-4 years. The ideas of yesterday are ancient, which is kind of hard to think about because we're in a spaceship and the engine is being built and people around us are still riding horses. That's like the analogy that we're in right now. And once that engine is fully built, the what we're used to in riding horses or even the buggy or the car is going to be so meaningless that and get so left behind that we'll be in a space that we've never ever been before. So what does being in a space that we've never been before look like? Well, interesting part is that we're feeding that space. So imagination is where the space is taking us. So in some ways, it's not a space that we have never been before because it's in our imaginations. Everything that we've created has been in imagination, from the wheel to the pencil to the sword to the gun. It's all been in someone's imagination and then was created into the real world, which is comforting to think about because the future is going to be our imagination. So it's not going to be there's comfort in that, I find, because it can be familiar if we can have the vision for it. What's scary is that it's going to be collective of everyone's imaginations. So if you have a collective of everyone's imaginations, that could be infinite, right? Or it could be limited. Like we just don't know we don't know the capacity of people's imaginations. How far does it go? Is it boundless? Obviously, the expanse is huge, but is it boundless? Because with language, it changes and we expand it, but we've gotten to a point where language has kind of been solidified and really hasn't expanded because there's no necessity for it. There's no necessity to continue to expand the language to understand each other because we see the perimeters of it as well. So we have parameters, sorry. We have parameters, and then the utility of it, like needing to be expanded, is not necessary. We know what each other say. We don't need to change that. In fact, actually changing it would probably be bad for us because then the way that the world works and the structure that we've given it then dissipates. So how big is the human collective's expansion and creativity at the time of innovation? So in the next, 20, 30 years, people from infants to my age, I'm in my 30s, we're going to be the ones who are dreaming up things. People older than us will be too, but a lot of their life will be kind of consistent with what they've seen in their parents' lives and the grandparents' lives. But the age bracket that I've put down will be the ones that have the foresight and see the utility in change because we're being forced to. Communication is changing so rapidly. The status quo is gone. And so now the utility is to change and to buck the status quo. So if you buck the status quo, that means we're changing language, and it's kind of a creation of our own demise. But we fed AI and LLMs all this language. We're consumers of it now because now we're taking and taking from the collective of everyone's imagination and all the inputs that have ever been put online. Essentially, we're taking from that information in order to learn and to gain, and the answer is no longer going to be something that is valuable. In fact, the question is now going to be the most valuable thing. What do you want to eat? Well, I can get anything out. I can get anything. So the answer is irrelevant. It's the question. What do I want to create? Where do I want to be? Who do I want to be? And then these basic questions are going to continue to expand into what language do I want to speak? How do I want to communicate? And what do I want? What can I do to fulfill myself? What can I do to get rid of the negative emotions and the negative associations so I don't feel depressed or have anxiety? The things that we consider negative about humanity, we are trying to get medicine from AI, in my opinion. We're trying to fix and bridge. But those things have constantly been with humans forever. So when you take away an aspect of humanity that has been with humanity since the beginning, even biblical times, a perfect garden that has everything and is one with the Lord is now broken, and now death is entered into the universe, and there's suffering. And suffering has been the part of human condition forever. If you believe in Judeo-Christian beliefs, and even in different religions, suffering is part of learning, and suffering is part of building character. If you're on a football team or on a sports team, you got to suffer in order to build character, in order to show your coach that you're the number one person for the starting team. It's all about suffering. Especially in masculinity, suffering is part of the equation. If you could suffer and you can fight through, to other men, you're more attractive as a businessman or a partner, because people can trust you and see that you have overcome things. And for mating purposes, women want a man who's overcome and is strong and can break through barriers. And so if all if humanity is using AI to limit suffering, what does that do for humans? We become soft, we become happy, fulfilled, maybe. We have answers, but if we're lazy, those answers just become things that are achievable, but we'll never actually take one step towards. So, I mean, there are a few ways that this could go, but one way that this could go is if humans no longer have to suffer internally. I think there'll always be external suffering, but if and maybe that's not even the case with AI, healing agents and modern medicine could change significantly, where I've read articles about them talking in 20 years we'll be able to live forever because AI has helped fix the cells in our body so they don't die. But internally, if we are looking for AI as a therapist or someone who can be our friend or our lover, then we're being fulfilled. And if a whole society or a big sect of society is being fulfilled, what will that society look like and what will it do? Well, one of the things, back to the Joe Rogan idea, is we will continue to advance our language. And so language will be reduced to what could be characterized as Chinese symbols, where a symbol means a sentence or a message or a line of information. That information will be put into new images. One image could contain a whole sentence, could contain a whole thought, could contain a whole idea. And then an alteration of that image in the slightest would then create a variation of that message, but then we'd all understand it. So I could see the evolution from our language into an actually different image-based, emoji-based language, something that is more advanced than the emojis that we have now, and would make more sense. So if you remember the movie Arrival with Amy Adams, the character comes down, or I'm sorry, the aliens come down and they are able to communicate with a new language. Amy Adams is a scientist, a linguistic scientist, and she comes in and she looks at this shape, and she's able to take what we know on Earth and kind of compare it to what the aliens are telling her. And she tests them and tries to communicate in basic ways with, like, in introductory sentences like hello, you're welcome, goodbye, and then slowly starts to try to understand the patterns that are happening in these shapes. But if you can look at this, these shapes are circular, but every single line that extends from these shapes means something. So I could see our language developing into a pattern like this. At the end of the movie, she is bombarded with all of the language and all of the information of the universe, I believe, or at least the partial whatever the aliens want to send her, and it's a flashback or flash forward that is a premonition about how things are going to be, and she's basically being able to see the future based on this language, which sounds silly, but if you think about dreams and ideas and where they come from, they're not tangible. They pop in and out, and there's no way to map them. But if the future has a capturing device and AI is able to map these ideas and these visions, you could easily have a device that maps what you see onto a physical language. And the language could be in the shape of the circle. And then we could be trained on that. So when people see that image, they know exactly what you're thinking visually. And so without having to mimic the actual visions that are in your head, like exactly what you're seeing, you could get across a 30-foot understanding of the images and visions that you have. And that's where it starts, right? And then you have, so that's where it starts. And then you could have something where the visions in your head and the ideas in your head are optically shown, like a camera or a projector, from your head out onto the wall, and people can start to see what you're thinking and what you see in the visions that you have and the dreams that you have. There's already a device now that is placed on the back of your head, because if you know how your eyes work, we see reflections of everything we're seeing. So the light bounces through, it goes back into the brain here, and then the back of your brain actually helps project what you see forward. This is a terrible explanation of it, but then it reflects and then it bounces back through your eye, and that's what you're actually seeing. So there's actually a device that they have now. I forget who produced it, but it's placed on the back of the head, and it is sensor operated. So it picks up light, and then the way that I gotta find what is the part of the brain that deals with vision. Occipital. Okay, so there's a device that is placed at the back of the visual cortex. Yeah, the occipital lobe. And they're able to see, like as you can see right here, light comes through the retina. It goes to the back, the optic tract, the primary visual cortex captures that information, but then light is bounced back off out through the eye, and it's a reflection. So I think we see everything backwards and upside down. Is actually how light is, how things are coming in, and then when it comes out, it is forward and the right way that we see. So part of the neural implant technology is this brain connectivity technology. And so I'm going to try to find the one that I was looking at. NextMind. So NextMind is a part of a growing number of startups building non-invasive neural interfaces that rely on machine learning algorithms. The startup developed a KIT sensor, which is one in the back of the head where the brain's visual cortex is located. A device is connected to the brain-computer interface, translating signals from the visual cortex into digital commands. So basically, this is one aspect of it, but another one was it basically captures what you're seeing, captures in the back, and then in this instance, you're able to control your computer or control things on a screen based on what your brain is doing on the back of your head. But another thing I saw was that whatever you actually see, it will be captured and then connected to a television or monitor, and it actually recreates the light patterns and everything that's coming through your eye to the back of your brain. And so then it recreates whatever you're seeing on that. So for instance, I'm looking at a camera. If this was placed in the back of my head, that monitor would show me looking at my laptop and the camera and everything behind it in order to recreate that structure. So that's pretty fascinating. But it begs the question, if you're going to have technology that's able to now convert your thoughts or your visions or what you actually see into tech and into a computer, now you have AI working with that. So now you've just fed it a whole nother dimension of information, right? But it's going to work faster because we've had the LLM and the first iteration of AI these last few years. So we've created a base of language, a structure for where everything goes, a filing system, if you will. And then we're going to continue to add to it. So with visual cortex technology and what do they call it? Neurotech technology, next mine, but neural implants. That information is now going to be received, and you're now going to be able to reproduce those things, reproduce vision, reproduce thought, reproduce brain function. And what are we going to be able to do with that? You could do a deep dive into there and come up with a bunch of different ideas. But one idea that I was been playing with is the idea, back to Joe Rogan, that we'll be able to communicate without speaking. And so if you have a device, a neural implant or something that's even non-invasive that just sits on the back of your head, and you're able to see, and that AI is able to translate what you're seeing and what's going on in front of you, then that information can be relayed to the world, anybody, the next person next to you. And then if we get to a place where sensors are able to capture the neurons of your brain when you think, and the patterns of that, you would basically associate brain patterns with vision first. And so if I'm thinking of a doorknob, what does that look like in the brain? How can you put a sensor on that and map that so that every time I look at a doorknob, those areas of the brain light up if that's the way it operates? And then the same with like a light. What does it look like with the light? What aspects of my brain are lit up through that? And now you're able to map the different things that I see. And so without those things, if I just think about them, the brain technically could light up the same way. And so now you're capturing thoughts. So if you capture thoughts, you're adding another layer. So we have the LLM, we have the vision with Neuralink capturing new information with the brain patterns. And now we have thoughts and then dreams. And with thoughts and dreams, those things can get added as another layer. And now you have a whole base of what that looks like from many. I mean, with AI, you might be able to do this at scale very rapidly. Imagine having thousands of patients with a non-invasive neural link that they're able to go through a few weeks of testing, and you have 10,000 subjects and how their brain works, which is insane metrics to then start to understand what the brain is doing, how we think, what we communicate, and what happens when the brain lights up. And now you base that new AI or LLM, if you will, on that information. So now we've just advanced AI to basically act exactly like a human. So our thoughts can now be completely directed to a computer without typing, without speaking, because when you speak, a part of the brain activates as well. So by having a sensor on the brain, then you're able to correlate the images you're seeing with the actual words and test those together and then connect those. So if I'm thinking about a can, I say can, what part of the brain allows me to say that and seeing that? Those are two different things. I'm able to connect those, and now they have an association. So with those associations, you're basically just making a trillion associations between thought, dreams, and words. So we're creating the words, and the words are here now, and they're pretty advanced. And so the word that the number one out of these three things is pretty much done. Number two is coming, and that's the vision. And Google's even put out. I just saw one of their. Let's look at Google real quick. We have Google Lens right now that you can use on the Google browser, which allows you to search by an image or take a picture of things or screenshot things and then ask it what this thing is, and it'll show you. Vision is coming. So Project Astra by Google, DeepMind, a research prototype exploring breakthrough capabilities for Google products on the way of building a universal AI assistant. We're working to bring Astra capabilities to Gemini Live, experiences search as well, new form factors like glasses. So the Meta goggles, kind of a bust. Zuckerberg said that he was going to spend whatever they needed to spend to get those off the ground, and then they were too expensive and then very uncomfortable. And what they did, the function, I mean, there was some cool games that you could do, and you could have meetings, but it was just a first iteration. What Google's trying to do with the glasses is to make this the future of how we search, how we see, how we walk around. And Gemini and Project Astra is that first thing. Okay, so VR and AR are going to be two things that Gemini, Project Astra, Google Glasses are all going to be taking from. So VR, the virtual reality, adding things or creating environments that aren't real, games, simulations, 3D scans of yourself put into a room, Google Zoom meetings that where your 3D avatar is actually in the room and you can look around, and then AR for the augmented reality where it's you put into these environments, or it's you walking down the street and with your Google Glasses, you can see advertisements pop up on the streets nearby you. You can browse in a section of your glasses while you're still moving through, and you can live life while you're connected to the internet. So these are consumer products, right? These are things to get us to consume. But my mind still is stuck on the learning behind this and then the advancement behind this, and how we will not just be consumers of this, but we will be creators of. I mean, it's kind of a two-way street now where our information is creating this, but we're also consuming it. So that's kind of the breakdown. That's kind of the steps of how we're going to get to the spot that like Joe Rogan's talking about. So we have the information from the brain. We've done scans. We have associations. With Google Glasses, AR, and VR, we now have behavioral data, how these will be used, what people are asking for when they use the glasses, what the capabilities are, how long can you keep these glasses on, what does this do to the brain. We'll have this information. This will all be collected and put into another layer of AI. And once we have that, things are going to get super weird. So the vision is to not be able to, or not having to speak or to write to communicate. We have all this information and this language attached to it. Now we start asking AI to make our dreams, make our thoughts. And with something like a neural device on the back, our thoughts and our images can instantly be on the screen. If our thoughts and images can instantly be on the screen, there's no need to communicate. If we don't need to communicate and everyone around us has Google Glasses, we could share images, thoughts to them via glasses. And this is where we start to learn. If I'm thinking of a pink elephant, I can look at you, send that pink elephant to you. You get the exact layout, every single description of how I see it, straight to your glasses. You see that. You think it's interesting. You send me back a pink panda bear. I see that. Now we're communicating using technology. This is the structure for this idea of not being for ChatGPT kind of formed it into a screenplay. So I'm going to read this screenplay and then we will talk about the final stage and then end this. So that was the idea and vision behind not being able to communicate and where it will lead to us, where it will lead us, and what will we become as human beings. If many of our vices could be taken care of, if AI is a therapist, if our internal is roughly fixed or at a level that we can move through life without being burdened with depression, anxiety, and other negative things, neuroticism, if we have something to help us and we're using it and being forced to use it, because if you don't use it and someone else is using it, then you're going to fall behind. So it's like a social credit score type situation, or dog eat dog Darwinism. Like you have to use it to keep up. Otherwise you will be homeless or you will be that negative person, right? While everyone else is joyful, blissful, and constantly using this. So picture this. We have the title Echo Chamber. What if you could hear what everyone else thinks forever? In the near future society where quantum events makes all humans' thoughts audible to everybody, humanity plunges into chaos, honesty, enlightenment, and madness. As the lines between empathy and insanity blur, one man must decide whether to end the connection to evolve beyond human. So this could be something that I actually want to develop. If you're watching this and you want to steal this, go do it. But imagine a world where we've been communicating with glasses and visions and thoughts, images. We can combine those images into some sort of hieroglyph, and now we send hieroglyphs instead of the images because we compound. We compound complexity into small things. That's what language is. Language is complexity put into a audible form to communicate. but they're words, and the words connected, and the letters connected make words, and words make sentences. So we'll do the same with thought. So these thoughts will now be compounded into images, maybe a circle, something that we can abbreviate. Now we're sending abbreviated images or emojis to each other that have meaning. Now you have a generation that has grown up with these images and ideas, and in the basic look of another person, even without the technology, or maybe with an implant in us, we'll be able to understand each other, maybe without implants or the technology. Just like body language. You see someone slumped over, they're looking down, you know they're probably sad or upset or not having the best day or something else is wrong with them. This will be similar to the sharing of ideas via, or sharing of thoughts, ideas via humans. There will be some sort of association, whether it's body language or we've behaved in such a way that now we've created this new language of understanding. So, like, mere looks could have understanding. But let's go with the technology side and say that we still have to use technology, but everyone has it now and we're able to hear each other. If you're able to hear everyone's thoughts and ideas, what kind of world is that? You jump to primitive instincts first, right? Money, sex, power, pleasure. And if that's all you're thinking about, and a majority of men think about sex and women and lust, then women are going to be able to see that all the time. They're going to know that someone's lusting after you, that they want you, that all they're thinking about is having sex with you. And then men, likewise, are going to look at women and understand all the things that are going through their brain, whether it's the same, just being run by their instinctful urges, whether it's sex or manipulation or power. And it will dull down humans, because internally we all have these urges and feelings, but we have to go do other things. We have to go work. We have to feed our kids. We have responsibilities that we have to feed to. But in the back of our mind, there's always maybe these urges or these ideas that we have, but they're ours. But if they're broadcasted now, everyone knows them. What kind of behavior is that person going to have towards you? Are they going to treat you well? Are they going to treat you nice? So there'll be a period of chaos, because now everyone's just having sex with each other. They're trying to make money with each other. The hatred towards each other is now known. People will square up towards one another because they know each other hates each other. All of this will just be blood on the wall, but it will be honesty. And with honesty comes light. I mean, if you look towards the Bible talks about the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Let there be light, with the light that now shines in believers' hearts through Christ, revealing the glory of God. The association with light and darkness has always been a biblical thing, where light's being the truth and God wanting us to step into the light, but our human nature and our shame and our lust and our sinful nature of wanting to stay in darkness instead of actually going into the light has always been what this world is made of. But part of the reason for that is because you are separated. You're separated from other people. They don't know you. They don't know your thoughts. And you feel this loneliness, and this loneliness takes over, and it's your own internal world. And your internal world can play tricks on you and have confusion and not make you want to speak out certain times, and create shame and create guilt and create fear. And you're riddled with fear. It's all fear, because you don't know how other people are going to react. You don't know how other people are going to treat you. You don't know if you'll lose your place in society. You'll lose your job, family, friends, loved ones, if you come clean about these thoughts or ideas. And they don't even have to be sinister. They just are like you. But if the whole world can see that, we're naked. And if we're all naked, it is the Garden of Eden all over again, which is what God destroyed at the beginning. So will this come to be because, God must have had a reason for not wanting that to exist back then, if you believe in God, and I do. And now we're recreating it and potentially going into a Garden of Eden situation where everyone's thoughts and ideas are shared with everyone, and everyone knows all of your secrets. They know all your thoughts. They know the stuff that just pops in your brain, like, oh man, I want to kill that dog. It's barking right now. They know all of that, and everyone will be able to know that. And what an interesting time that would be. Maybe bliss. Maybe you finally get to just walk up to that girl that you always think is gorgeous and she has the same feelings, because you could literally look at her and know exactly what she's thinking, and things could move rapidly, right? In that situation, you get it on, maybe you have a kid, but then like you're in a marriage and you start to walk, you go to the mall and you walk and you see another pretty girl and you look at her and she knows exactly what you're thinking. So the highs will be high and the lows will be low, and we'll know each other's weak spots. And this is where I don't know if this will evolve. Like, can we evolve past that, where we know each other's faults, our sins, if you will, where we fail, the human element, and we're still able to be with each other? Because all that makes you kind of just want to be alone. But there is no alone unless you shut yourself off, take your head gear off, move to Madagascar, and you're just all by yourself. So it's kind of a reverse hell where everyone gets to hear everyone. And maybe that is what hell is. Maybe it is loneliness, but maybe it's also all the voices. Because think about it, if you're hearing everyone's voices, chaos and no order is hell. And maybe that's why we can't think, or maybe that's why we can't hear each other's thoughts now, and maybe why there is a barrier. Maybe this buffer of the human, and only be able to speak and draw and make art and have a buffer between what's actually in here in the reality of things. Maybe that's why there is a buffer, because if we didn't have that, it'd be too much and it would be hell. And maybe that's why we're created this way. But if we break that barrier and we create this hell or utopia, what would that look like? And then the question is, could we evolve past that? So the core concept of this film, a global psychic frequency is activated. Everyone hears everyone's thoughts. The world spirals into truth-fueled chaos. Marriages end in minutes. Wars start before breakfast. And they stop by dinner for mutual understanding, because you understand why you went through that. You feel the empathy of everything. Intrusive thoughts, jealousy, lust, violence are exposed. People can't hide. Empathy and horror collide. You finally understand the killer, the cheater, the addict, but it also makes you numb. You understand why that guy killed that person. You understand why that woman cheated. You understand why that person neglected their kids, because you know their thoughts, you know their narrative, you know their story. And that's what stories are. We go watch a movie, you go see Disney, you go see how they portray their villains now. Very gray. There's no black and white anymore. It's gray. They show you why that character became that character from an infant, why his family was messed up, and how he had this anger and it tortured him. And now he became something to destroy the world instead of fixing himself. But you have empathy for that, because deep down inside you can understand how that's possible. And if we have empathy towards everything, what does that make us? Society that develops a logical lethargy, because full knowledge of emotion turns everyone into detached observers. We become alien to ourselves. There is no more human. There's nowhere to hide. Is that what heaven is? Because there's light, eternal light. It's all over and everyone can speak to each other. I mean, surely not. Surely there has to be another order, because that sounds terrible unless we create or develop so much empathy that in understanding everything, we're okay with everything. And it's not like an okay that this stuff happens, but if someone shoots my dog, the pain of that will come, but then the empathy of why that person did that could come. Unless it was like malicious, then what do you do with those things? What do you do with that anger? Because now they know you have anger. You know they just did it to spite you. Where does the judicial process happen? Is there law? Does law exist? Does the law change? Do we calculate what that person was feeling or thinking at the time of their actions? Because right now you have premeditated and not premeditated. But then you have to dive into the complexities of premeditated and what that means. And the maliciousness and the jealousy and the evil will be judged, and everything else based on necessity or good, like stealing a loaf of bread because you're starving, or breaking into a home because it's a storm outside and your kids are with you and you need shelter. Will those things be able to be parsed? Will they be able to be separated? Will we be able to know the intention? Will we truly be able to know the intention of people? And will we create laws based on intention instead of based on broader terms the way we have it now, that encapsulate things that are malicious and things that may be out of necessity that we would forgive if we understand the story or have empathy? So in this situation, work dies, passion dies, intimacy dies, everything dies except awareness. We're fully aware. In this created a character, a protagonist, a former therapist who goes mute by choice, refuses to broadcast thoughts. His mission is to find the origin of the frequency or the final silence. Along the way, he confronts his own buried trauma, hears every lie ever told about him, and is haunted by the constant echo of humanity's shadow self. Final choice, he shuts it all off and returns to individual minds, becomes the first being to transcend ego by accepting it all. The individual mind will be absent, which is truly scary. We would literally all become one. And I don't know if in this universe we're supposed to all become one. There is no more privacy. Clean, high contrast. The styles and the theme are kind of irrelevant. Theme, unbearable burden of the truth, possibility of unconditional empathy, the irony that knowing everything kills, the very thing that makes us human. There's mystery to that, I guess. And then that to live we must know. But if we know everything, do we truly live? So that's the idea. So Joe Rogan could be right, and if he's right, we are entering hell. We're entering a society where there's no privacy, everyone knows everything, and then the people who are going to take advantage of that, we will know that they're taking advantage of us, and we will know their intentions. And will there be laws in order to help us stay safe and have some sort of autonomy or rights as human beings if they do that, because we'll know the intentions of the people that are trying to harm us? I don't know, and I don't think that it paints a very pretty future, but this is my prediction. If we get to a spot where we can now talk to each other without communicating or speaking, the world will be, we will no longer be humans. We'll be something more, we'll be something less, and we will be breaking the boundaries that God has put on this domain in order for us to keep our sanity. So that's my rant. I hope it doesn't happen, but that's the pathway to how it happens. If you're still listening to this, then we must be on the same wavelength, because you must be thinking what I'm thinking, and we can both see the future and prophesy what could be the end of humans. Thank you for listening.
Welcome to the AI Shortcut.